Welcome back, and thank you for joining me here at Eyes Machine Lab. In this video, we're going to go through the assembly process for the Random Waves Synth Girl Mini. Now, as I've mentioned before, I'm completely new to this kind of gear, so this isn't meant to be an expert walkthrough. This is really just my first experience putting everything together, learning as I go, and hopefully helping out anyone else who might be starting from the same place. So, let's get into it. Throughout the video, I'll be showing an image of each step from the assembly guide, followed by video footage of my own experience during that part of the build. Hopefully this can serve as a helpful companion alongside the official instructions. All right, let's begin with step A. Remove the 4 corner screws on the front panel and take it off. So I've sped this section up, mostly to save you from watching me remove screws for the next several minutes. Now, I should probably mention, this is not the speed you actually want to use while doing this yourself. Definitely take your time here, especially with some of these smaller screws. They're very easy to misplace. And trust me, you really don't want to be crawling around the floor halfway through the build, trying to find one that disappeared into another dimension. Step B. Detach the 3D printed screen frame from the middle panel. Step C. Place the new screen into the frame as shown. At this stage, we're placing the screen into the frame assembly. One thing I would definitely recommend paying attention to here is the flexible flat cable coming off the back of the display. Try to keep it laying as flat as possible against the back side of the screen while lowering everything into place. You really want to avoid bending, twisting, or putting unnecessary stress on that cable during assembly. The instructions don't specifically say anything about the protective film on the screen. But personally, I decided to leave the screen protector on during most of the assembly process, just to help avoid accidental scratches or damage while handling everything. All right, moving on to the next step. Step D. Flip both the screen and frame upside down. The frame holds the screen pretty well, but ensure it does not fall out while flipping them both over. Step E. Flip the middle panel and place it on top, letting the screen cable pass through. For this next step, we'll start by separating the middle panel from the back panel. At this stage, the middle panel isn't actually secured yet. That will happen a little later during assembly. Now, as you lift the middle panel away, there may or may not be a little treat for you hidden underneath. I'll leave that as a surprise for anyone experiencing this for the first time. Once that's done, go ahead and set the back panel off to the side for now. Next, carefully place the screen face down, with the flexible flat cable facing upward. Then gently guide the cable through the opening in the middle panel. And again, just take your time here and avoid putting any sharp bends or stress on the cable while feeding it through. Step F, make sure the black locks on the connector move freely, then gently push them to the right. Step G. Insert the cable into the connector using your finger. Now we're at the step where the flexible flat cable is inserted into the connector. Before sliding the cable in, make sure the small black locking tabs are pushed over to the right into the open position. Once they're unlocked, the cable should slide into the connector fairly smoothly without much resistance. You may notice in the video that it looks like I'm bending the cable slightly while using my finger to guide it into place. But I was really just trying to make sure the connection was fully seated and aligned properly. That said, you definitely want to avoid putting any sharp bends, folds, or creases into the cable during this process. Take your time here, because the cable itself is very thin and delicate. Step H. Once fully inserted, push the lock to the left to close them. Once the cable is fully seated in the connector, the next step is to close the small black locking tabs on each side. You really don't need much pressure here at all. Just a gentle push is enough to slide the locks back into place and secure the cable. And once those locks are closed, the flexible flat cable is held firmly in position. At that point, the connection should be fully secured and ready for the next stage of assembly. Step I. Flip the middle panel, plug in the USB cable and press the LCD button. A test image should appear. For the next step, carefully turn the middle panel and screen assembly upright. While doing this, make sure to gently support both the frame and the screen together, since the display is not fully secured to the middle panel just yet. You definitely don't want the screen separating or shifting unexpectedly while rotating it into position. The instructions call for connecting the USB cable and pressing the LCD button to test the display. In the Drumboy mini assembly video, I discuss a direct wall USB power adapter versus a power bank to the USB cable, where I was successful with power and a test image using the power bank. So if your screen doesn't power on right away during this step, definitely double-check the power source before assuming something is wrong with the display itself. All right, now we can move on to the next stage of assembly. Step J. Unplug the USB cable and place the middle panel onto the bottom panel. With the screen now tested and working properly, I went ahead and placed the back panel down with the inside of the panel facing upward. Then, carefully lowering the middle panel and screen assembly onto the back panel, making sure everything was seated properly and aligned evenly. At this stage, you'll want to check that the screw holes on both panels line up correctly before moving forward. Taking a few extra seconds here to make sure everything is aligned will make the next steps go much more smoothly. Step K. Tighten the 4 nuts using tweezers. Next, using the included tweezers, begin tightening the 4 small nuts onto the bolts that secure the middle panel to the back panel. One thing worth paying attention to here is that each nut has a flat side. You'll want that flat side sitting flush against the panel as you tighten them down. Now, I'll be honest, I ended up tightening most of these off camera because those nuts are tiny, and my eyes are apparently no longer operating on the latest firmware update. Also, try not to over-tighten these. They really only need to be snug enough to where they stop turning comfortably. There's no need to force them down too tightly. Just enough pressure to secure everything in place is perfectly fine. Step L. Ensure the connector locks freely, then gently push them to the right. For this next step, we're just making sure the connector locking tabs move freely. Using a gentle amount of pressure, slide both locks carefully over to the right into the open position. They should move fairly easily, so there's no need to force them. Step M. Insert the top panel cable into the connector using tweezers. Make sure the metal part is fully in. Now, if you happen to watch my Drumboy mini assembly video, you'll probably remember that Step M gave me quite a bit of trouble. But this time around with the Synth Girl Mini, the process went much more smoothly. And honestly, the biggest difference was simply paying closer attention to the instructions in the guide. Specifically, the recommendation to use the tweezers to help guide the flexible flat cable into the connector. Using the tweezers made it much easier to keep the cable aligned properly while carefully sliding it into place, without putting unnecessary bends or stress on the cable itself. And compared to my first attempt with the Drumboy Mini, this felt significantly easier the second time around. So if you're assembling one of these yourself, I would definitely recommend taking your time here and using the tweezers exactly as suggested in the instructions. All right, let's continue. Step N. Push the locks to the left to secure the cable. In this next clip, press the locking tabs once the flat cable is fully inserted into the connector. After the cable is seated properly, the tabs can be gently pushed back into the locked position to secure the connection. From there, I carefully lower and seat the top panel onto the middle panel assembly, making sure everything lines up evenly and sits flush before moving on to the next step. Step O. Plug in the USB cable and hold the button at the bottom left for 3 seconds. Insert SD card should appear. At this point, go ahead and connect the USB cable to the Synth Girl Mini. Once power is connected, press and hold the Synth Girl Mini logo located near the lower left side of the unit for about 3 seconds. After a brief moment, the screen should power on, and the message, "Insert SD card," should appear on the display. And honestly, seeing that screen appear after the assembly process is always a pretty satisfying moment. And now for the final step, Step P. Unplug the USB cable and tighten the 4 screws on the top panel. Before inserting and tightening the 4 screws in the top panel, I now removed the screen protector from the screen. I then inserted and tightened each of the 4 screws on the stop panel, not over-tightening them, but enough that they are snug. And there we have it, a fully assembled and functioning Synth Girl Mini. Thank you for following along with me through the process. And if you'd like to continue the journey, be sure to check out the next video where I'll be doing a quick walkthrough of the Quick Start Guide and getting a first look at the basics of the Synth Girl Mini. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.